When we talk about labor economics, here we mean that we are going to focus on one market, and that one market lies under the factor market. That one market iko chini ya labor market, iko chini ya the factor market, whereby we are going, when we talk about factors of production, here we mean things such as land, we mean things such as labor, we mean things such as capital, and we mean things such as entrepreneurial skills. But these entrepreneurial skills, sometimes you have to have some property rights. So when we talk about the factor market, we mean things that can be sold in the factor market are land, labor, and capital. And here we are majorly focusing on labor economics. Here we are just focusing on what we call labor economics. And we can say labor economics, it is the study one factor production. And in bracket, you can say market for labor services. In bracket, you can talk about the market for labor services. That is why we talk about labor economics. So labor economics is not a big definition because we are talking about one factor of production that lies under the factor market, one factor that the farms purchase from the household. And when we talk about that, we talk about that market, it is so important to us to understand the reason behind studying labor economics. Because labor is not a service that you can go to the market and sell like bananas, or you can go and sell like imboga. These labor services you sell, they give somebody what we refer to as prestige. They give an individual prestige and they define who you are. Last time I was asking on board, people told me that they would prefer to PCOs rather than being cleaners or being janitors. Anyway, so it defines who you are. Then we talked about why should we go majorly on this labor, why? So we talked about, we study labor economics because the labor market is so important to us in an economy. Reason being that most of us, our breadwinners, or the reason why we are in school, or the way we get our incomes or our expenditures are all brought about from the labor market, because you have to work to bring something home. So it is so important to us to study the labor market because everybody in the economy of Kenya earns income via the labor market. Then number two, the labor market is so important to us because it makes us understand why some people are who they are, why some people earn more than others, and the reason behind that earning. That is another case. And then number three, we have a case whereby it enables us to understand the distribution of income. And when we understand that the distribution of income, we're going to understand why some people are economically well-being and others are not economically well-being, defining from the labor activities they take out. Like we can see casual laborers are not well-being in some sectors, but I know from the agriculture sector they are doing well. Then we talked about the actors in this market. The actors in the market, we have the household, which gives us the workers, and then we have the farms and the government. These three actors have decisions to make. So wherever you will be faced with such a question, who are the actors in the labor market? Say, if it is workers, they make choices like when to enter the market, when to retire, which skills to acquire, such stuffs. When you talk about being the actor like the farms, you say the farms make decisions about the number of workers they are going to hire. They come up with the pension scheme. They talk about when to lay off and when to close down the plant, such stuff. Then we have the government. And when we talk about the government here, the government brings out an environment that is going to be good enough for the actors to operate in that market. So it brings about an environment you can see people typing.
Oh, yun ang magiging. Ayun.
Can you get me now? Rashid, can you get me at the other hand? I want to confirm who is not getting me clear at the other hand. What is the issue? Evelyn, can you get me now? Okay. Let me now remain focused. Anyway, I've seen where the issue was coming from. So we were talking about the actors in the labor market before I realized that there was an issue at the other end. So when we talk about the actors, we are talking about the three actors. In the market, we have the household. The household gives us the labor services. It is the one that gives us the workers. Then we have the farms. In this type, the farm demands the labor services. And then we have the government that tries to create an environment where these two actors, the household and the farm, can interact freely. So this is what happens. When we talk about the household makes decisions such as when to enter the labor market. The household decides which education, the level of education to acquire and which training to acquire. The household decides which farm or which industry to venture in. The household decides the number of hours he or she is going to work, and the he or she decides when to retire or when to quit. That is the decisions from the household side. So wherever you are faced with a question asking you, discuss the actors in the labor market. Don't just say workers. Try as much as possible to explain what the choices they make. Also, when you talk about the farms have the choices that they normally make. They have to decide the number of workers they are going to take in. They have to decide the number of hours these workers are going to work. They decide when to lay off and when to close down the plant, and they come up with the pension and the retirement policies. On the other end, when the government tries to establish this environment for the actors to act freely, it provides training through different institutions. And we have a certain level. Like in Kenya, you cannot be told to go out there if you don't have the basic education. Because nowadays you have to provide a Form 4 certificate to be employed somewhere. Number two, the government comes up with an employment scheme. This doesn't work for our case in Kenya, but the Jubilee government was advocating for it, but it never worked. But in developed economies, it works so fairly. Then it comes up with the workers' compensation. When you talk about workers' compensation, it's whereby, in case whereby like now we have the Corona scheme, whereby people are being laid off. The government in developed economies, you heard about the government in Qatar was providing every individual, every household with something. The government was giving people something. What happened in the case of Rwanda? Instead of the government letting you go home, the government comes up with a plan that is going to be used to feed you over the time. Then we have the government through, like in Kenya, we have an SSF. That's where we have the pensions, where the government gives people pensions. You have to contribute when you are working, then when you go home, you are given the pension. Then the government protects the workers and the farm. The government enables that wherever you are doing the same business with another company, that company does not interfere with your space. So that is another plan that the government comes up with. And when it protects workers in such a way that you cannot be told today go home. You have to be given a notice maybe 3 months earlier than you're told. By the end of maybe July, we don't need your services. So that is what the government does. That was the introduction aspect. So today we are going to focus majorly on the labor demand. And I want you guys to be labor-minded. When we talk about labor demand, we talk about the services the household are offering. At the same time, we are talking about the services the farms are demanding. So in this case, the supply side is the household, not like the economics we used to discuss earlier, where we used to say that the supply side was the farm and the demand side was the household. But in labor economics, the supply side is the household, while the demand side is the farms. So that's where we pick our discussion today. So I want you to understand, like, the supply side, we have the farms, and the demand side, no, I'm sorry. I'm talking about the demand side. The demand side, we have the farms, and the supply side, we have what we call the household. So those are the two cases that normally happen in our market, in the labor market. The demand side becomes the farms, and the supply side becomes the household. So before going further, let us define what is demand from economics, the higher economics. And we can say demand is the individual desire. The individual desire and ability is the individual desire and ability to buy goods and services to satisfy, not to satisfy, at any market price at a given time. So we are talking about the demand being an individual desire and ability to buy, because those who we had introduction to economics, I challenged you to distinguish between demand and the human want. The only thing that makes demand superior is that you have that ability to purchase something. So when you talk about labor demand, in this case, labor demand is the ability of farms to purchase labor services at any market price at a given time. So we are talking about labor demand being the ability of firms to purchase labor services at any market price at a given time. So we use the area demand to define labor demand. So wherever you are faced with that challenge, because we normally face those challenges when we are in maybe exam board or we are being asked such questions, we face that. So when you face that, just remember what we talked about, the demand, then try to fix using the labor services and the farms. And I think you are going to get it out clear. So in most cases, we are going to talk about labor demand. Labor demand is derived demand. So sometimes when you are asked, I want you to take some time and try to tell me, when something is being derived, what does it mean? I want to see your response. I want to see people typing. What do you feel? Somebody tells you your performance is derived. Faith, can we see your text? When somebody tells you something is derived, those who attended the class of English, for me, I skived those classes. Rosari, come on board. I want to see people typing. Rhinas, Joseph, Hassan. Let us try to talk about what is derived. When somebody tells you your performance is derived. Mina, I've not seen your text. Najib, on board, I've not seen your text. Let us try to define derived, the aspect of something being derived. Guys, come on board. We are not going to charge anybody according to the answer because we are running. It's a running activity. I'm also running English from you guys. Come on. Hi, Emmanuel, come on board. I can see you. There are some people who are not taking part, and we're going to throw them out of our class. Mapuruka, come on board. Joseph, Faith, Ndewa, come on board. You guys, I want to see how you are calling this thing of derived. What do we refer to as derived? I can see somebody Googling at the other end. Come on, don't Google, just give out what you feel like. Derived. Emmanuel, I can see the definition. It's almost coming clear. There's somebody who has come on board. Lydia, we are talking about the derived demand. Mugo, we have not seen your response. We are not seeing you typing. Faith, I can see acquired from. We are 14, so I am only seeing 7 responses. So where are the other 7, guys? Rasid, you went missing. I saw you typing, but you went missing. Amina, I hope you are not making an inquiry from Mina. Okay. So when you talk about something being derived, we talk about that thing when your performance is derived, it means that there's something behind. Mina, I can see you copied it from somewhere. Let me wait for at least 1 minute to see. There's somebody typing. There are some 2 people typing. Nachib, you have not typed anything, so I'm worried. Can see those who attended the classes of English. I others we were skiving. Christine, what do you have on board for us? Okay, when we mean something is derived from something, Lydia, do you want to say something? Lydia, do you want to say something?
Yes?
Do you want to say something before I mute your mic?
Yeah, just Brenda, I want you to know the video. How I can log into the video.
I'm not getting what you are saying.
I'm saying, how can I get to the video instead of audio? I want to see you, so I want to get to the video instead of the audio.
No, I'm not sharing my web camera. I'm just using the audio and I'm using the public chat as a communication platform.
Pardon?
Okay? I'm
Pardon?
not sharing my web camera.
Huh?
I'm not sharing my web camera, so you cannot see me if you want to see me. Okay? Okay. Christine, are you doing some Google things? You have been typing for the last 10 seconds. So we say labor demand is derived demand. And this is one of the questions that you're likely to meet often. Why? Explain why labor demand is derived demand. So in this case, how does it happen? It happens in this way. When the farms realize that their products are demanded or they have high demand in the market, they respond by producing more. But they cannot produce more with the number of workers on board. They have to go to the labor market to pick some more workers to come on board. So the farm does not go to the labor market to pick workers on the basis of it is maybe like on the basis like a normal basis. It has to experience high demand for its services. Then that is what induces the farm to go to the market to come up with more laborers. So we can say in short is that increase of farms output, increase in demand for farms output induces the farms produce more, and this cannot be achieved by employing more services, employing more input, such as labor. So this is what normally happens. The farms, when they realize that people are demanding, or consumers demand more of their goods and services, they produce more. But by producing more, they have to employ more input or more factors of production. That's why they go for more labor and they go for more capital. That is what normally induces. That's why we talk about labor demand is a derived demand. Farms don't demand labor on the normal basis. They demand when they have realized that their goods and services are on demand. Also, we can talk about it being when the farms are performing poorly, meaning the demand for goods and services decline. Mean the demand for goods and services decline, the farms produce less, therefore they employ less factors of production. So when you are faced with that question, when you are told that labor demand is derived demand, you explain it using the both aspect. You explain when there is increase in demand and when there is a decrease in demand. That's how you are going to capture that labor is a derived demand. You have to explain using that the demand for services increases and the demand for services declines, so that you can capture the two aspects. So I encourage you guys, whenever you are faced with a question, try as much as possible to explain the two aspects. When we have an increase and when we have a decrease in the demand for goods and services from the farms, what happens? So with that, that's how we can say that labor demand is derived demand. Without wasting much time, we can say labor demand, that's a note. We can say labor demand obeys law of demand. Obeys the law of demand. And I'm putting on board, you guys come on board. I want you to state the law of demand. I want to see people typing. State the law of demand. And I'm going to start calling you names so that I can see you typing. Mina, state the law of demand. Maureen, state the law of demand. Lydia, state the law of demand. Joseph, Linus. I want to see you guys typing, stating the law of demand. How does the law of demand state? Mugo, I want to see you are typing. Faith, I can see you typing. Rasid, I want to see you typing. State the law of demand. State the law of demand. At holding all factors constant, Faith, come on board. Come on board. I want to see people stating the law of demand. Kama mmesahau baada mtafanya mtihani wengine wenu, let me look at those my students. Mina, you are one of my students. Trainers, see your response. Christine, your response. Joseph, I want to see your response. Mugo, don't say you are not my student. You are my student in Introduction to Statistics. So you can also take part in this. You can use statistics to say the rate of demand. Come on board. Nachib, I've not seen you typing. You are in our class as a partial attender. We are going to deal with you. Purity Mutoni, come on board. Thank you. But I want to see you typing, stating the rate of demand. I'm seeing somebody copying. Some people are running away from being on board. So from our previous classes, let me wait. Yes, I have seen. Amina, your answer is one-sided. Your answer is not complete. Rashid, I cannot see you typing. Nachib, I can see you muting your mic and coming on board, but I'm not seeing you typing. Purity Mutoni, come on board. Maureen, I've not seen you typing. You are putting me off with English. I don't know English. You have used hard words. You have used vocabularies that I've never had before. So from what I have seen, I can say that, okay, you remember what we meant when we were talking about the rate of demand. It means that holding all other factors constant, when the price of a commodity goes up, the demand goes down. At the same time, okay, but if you can type about the network, you can tell us what about the rate of demand. So when you talk about holding all other factors constant, when the price goes up, demand goes down. And when the price goes down, demand increases. So that's why some of you who are giving one-sided, I was saying it's a one side. So when you talk about demand for labor obeys the law of demand, it means that when the wages increase, or when the wages rise, the demand for labor increases. Use the word decline size. And when wages decline, demand for labor. So when we talk about labor being derived, which we have explained, we have said it obeys the law of demand. So we mean that when it obeys the law of demand, number one, what we are supposed to understand, it is downward sloping from left to right. In the notes, I think I illustrated that. Then number two, when the price increases, when the price, in this case where we refer to as price is wage. When the wage increases, the labor demand declines. And when the wages goes down, the demand for labor will increase because it is downward sloping from left to right. So the firms will tend to employ more laborers when the wages are low. And when the wages are high, the labor market or the firms are going to employ less workers. That's why you realize that in firms whereby people are paid peanuts, you realize there are many workers. And in offices where people are required, where people, maybe people with high skills, or where people are paid too much, it's only a few people who are taken on board. So you realize that when the wages will be increasing, people will be told to go home. And when the wages will be coming down, many people will be absorbed to the market. So that's where we talk about it obeys the law of demand. So like we said earlier in our discussions from introduction to economics, we have determinants of labor demand, determinants of labor demand. But before we talk about the determinants of labor demand, I want you to come on board and say the determinants of demand so that we can. So I want to see people typing. What are the determinants of demand? I don't want somebody to explain. You just state one determinant and you go. Determinants of demand. Those who can remember what we talked about, the determinants of demand. You can say anything. Those who can recall the determinants of demand. Some people are not with us. Some people are on board, but they are not with us. And I'm going to check those people and I'm going to report them. For those who remember that equation, I can see somebody that said the size of population. Mina, no. Availability of credit, no. There's somebody who has said government policies, no. There's somebody who has said the quality of the product, no. We are talking about the price of that commodity. The market structure and the competition, no. When we talk about demand is brought about by the price of the commodity itself. When you go to the market, you realize that maybe you want to purchase a dress or you want to purchase something like an attire. When you look at the first thing normally people look at, most of the male aspect, they look at the price. We start with the price. Then we look at the price of other things that are related to that cloth. If you wanted to buy a jeans, you will also look at the price of the khaki. Yes, I can see somebody has come on board with the preference of the consumer. Thank you. So that is the two things you look at. Number three, you will check your pocket, the income. Number three, you will check about if you prefer something over another. You are also going to check your expectations. Is the price going to rise in future or it's going to fall in future? Then we have something advertisement. Have I heard about this thing before? Or this is the first time I'm seeing this thing? We have the size of population, and then we can talk about other factors that do not exist in our Kenyan economy. So when we talk about determinants, now we can talk about determinants of labor demand. And here, in this case, because this is our major interest, we talk about things like wage changes. We talk about demand demand for products, talk about the price of substitutes. And here when we talk about the substitute, we mean the price for capital. And also we can talk about technological levels, technology levels. So we talk about the determinants of labor demand, things such as the wage changes. We have the demand for the products. We have number 3, the price of substitutes, and here we are talking about capital, and then we can talk about technology levels. Like the demand we talked earlier, we talked about the movement along, and the shift of the demand curve. We talked about the movement along and the shift of the demand curve. So we can talk about wage changes causes the movement along the demand curve. The changes in wage cause the movement along the demand curve. Also, these others, now when you talk about product demand, when we talk about price of substitutes, when we talk about technology levels, because the shift of the demand curve. Okay, when we talk about the movement, we mean that still on the same curve, we can go up and down. That is the movement. Like when we say, when the price or when the wages increase, we are going to move more to the, let me see whether I have that curve so that I can share with you. Let me see whether I have that. And when we talk about the shift, is the whole curve moving maybe to the right or to the left. So I don't know you guys, are you seeing my screen? Can you see my screen from the other end? I don't know what you are seeing, guys. I can't say because for me, I have many stuffs. What are you seeing? Are you seeing any graph? What are you seeing? I want to know what you are seeing from the other hand. Eric, are you seeing a graph? Mnaona nini? The graph has disappeared. Oh my. Let me try again to share with you my screen. Don't know where the problem is coming from. So you can see it now. Those who can see my graph. Okay, thank you. So this is when we talk about the change in wages. The change in wages. Hope you can see where my cursor is situated. Mugo, you can see my graph? Those who can see my graph from this side, when we talk about the change in wages, we have that graph. This graph is what we refer to as it is obeying the law of demand, because it is downward sloping, meaning that when the wages are at W2, hope you can see where W2 is on top. Few people will be employed at E2, and when the wages go to W3, few people will be employed at E3. Hope you can see that. That's when we talk about it obeys the law of demand. And when you talk about the movement along that curve, assume that we were at W1 at the middle, then probably the wages increase. We are not going to shift this thing. We are going to move up. You can see moving up to W2, and there is a move downward to W3 when the wages decrease. So that's what we talk about, the movement along the demand curve. Are we together? Guys, are we together? I want to see your response, because I will be happy moving on with you. I don't want to leave somebody behind, somebody to cast CTEC for paying school fee. Okay, W1 is at the center. Evelyn, you can see W1. Mugo, you have not seen our graph yet? Oh my. What are we going to do? Are you using your phone, Mugo, or you are using what? Okay, I'm going to sort you out after this. So for now, let me explain. Evelyn, if you can see W1, it is at the center. So assume, Lydia, what is it? So we want to assume that our wage was at W1 initially, whereby E2 people were employed. When you follow that, the joining dots, you can see when we have W1, E2 people, or E2 employment was available. So assuming that our wage increases to W2, hope you can see W2 on top. So it means that at the W2, E2 people will be employed, meaning that when the wages go up, few people will be employed. And assuming that from W1, the wages go down to W3, E3 people or E3 employment will be available, meaning that employment will increase. So this is what we refer to as the law of demand, as well as it is what the wage changes do in the labor market. When the wages change, we have the movement along the demand curve. Are we together, Evelyn? Are we together, everyone? Thank you. So the wages happen in two ways. Number one, when the wages increase, this is how now it obeys this law of demand. When the wages increase, I'm going to use my public chart. When wages increase, when the wages increase, when the wages increase, the firms will increase the price for their products to be relevant in the market. Because you understand from the rational decision of the firms are profit maximizing entities. So they will try to increase the price for their product to be relevant in the market. The consumers will respond by purchasing or demanding less of the product. Because when you go to the market, you realize that the price is too high, you are going to demand less of that product. The firms will be forced to produce less. Therefore, they will so the first case we talk about what happens. Why do we have the downward sloping of the demand curve for the labor demand? We're going to talk about when the wages increase, the firm will increase the prices for their product so that they can be profit maximizing entities. But the consumers in the market, we know who we are, we will respond by purchasing less of their products. And if we purchase less of their product, the firms will be forced to produce less because there is no demand. And by producing less, they will have to do away with some of the workers. That is the first case. Also, we can talk about in markets, let us use the perfect competitive market. Competitive market. We can talk about actors and price takers. You cannot change the price. So they take price. Therefore, if wages increase, the firms will employ more capital that is cheap compared to labor. Therefore, workers will be sacked. So this is what happens. The two scenarios bring about the downward sloping of the demand curve. In case we are operating in a perfect competitive market, whereby in the perfect, for those who went through the market structures, you show that in the perfect competitive market, we are price takers. You don't dictate the price. because the price is being brought about by the forces of demand and supply. So in that case, when you realize that you cannot increase the price and the wages have gone up, instead of employing more workers, you are going to do away with more workers, then you employ capital. Capital is a substitute for labor. Therefore, some workers will be forced to go home. So that is what we refer to as the movement along the demand curve and the factors that can bring about the movement and why the demand curve is downward sloping. Are we together, guys, up to that point? If we are together, I want you to take this poll. I don't want you to type. I'm taking a poll. Just use yes, no. I want you to I'm taking a poll. If we are together, anybody with an issue, you can say no. But if you have no issue, just say yes. I'm seeing 8 people responding, but others are not responding. And I'm going to use this to realize those who are with us and those who are not with us. Emmanuel Mueni, Daisy, Christine, Evelyn, Mapuruka. I've not seen your response. There are some people who are not with us. I've seen 11 people have responded out of the possible 15 who are on board. And I can publish those results you can see from there. So let us proceed. Let us proceed. Let us talk about the other factors. Evelyn, where are you lost? Evelyn? Nachib, I can see you asking. You are asking like, what happens if the skill of the workers will not lower the reduced wage? So I'm trying to understand. You are meaning that if the skill of Eriko Juang, your microphone. Okay, thank you. Okay, when you're talking about what happens if the skill of the workers will not, here we are assuming that the wages increase randomly. It's not about the skill. It is like the government announces that all workers to be given a 0.2% increase in wage. So it is going to affect, even if you don't have the skills, your wage will have to increase. Okay? And Lydia, you are talking about the graph. We use this graph to illustrate the movement along the demand curve. We assumed, if you can see W1, can you see W1? If you can say yes. If you can see W1, that was, we used it as our initial wage. If it was our initial wage, then we assume that the wages are increasing from W1 to W2. We assume that the wages are increasing from W1 to W2. We will have an upward movement. We will have an upward movement. Sorry that we have not labeled in our graph, but if you can see the red dot, it will move from this point upward to this. And when we look at the x-axis, it will mean that the number of people employed will move from E1 to E2. So when the wages increase, few people will be employed. That is the first case. And when we assume that our wages decline from W1 to W3, You can see that there is a movement along that curve that is going to move from downwards as that cursor moves down that point, meaning that more people will be employed from E2 to E3, meaning that when the wages go down, more people are going to be employed. So I was explaining why the downward sloping of the demand curve, and I said the first thing is that the firms, if they realize that the wages are going to increase, they are going to increase the prices of their products to be relevant in the market. By increasing that, the consumers, us now, we are going to respond by purchasing fewer of those their products. And with that, they will be induced to produce less, because if there is no demand, why produce too much? You are going to produce less. And if you are going to produce less, it means that you have to do away with some workers. So that's why when the wages increase, fewer people are going to be employed. When the wages increase, because the firm will respond. The first case, the firm will respond by increasing the price of their product, and the demand for their products will go down, meaning that they will be forced to produce less. And if you are forced to produce less, you have to do away with some factors of production. And number one factor of production, you may do away with capital, or you can do away with labor. That's the first case. Then we have the second case, whereby when the wages increase, maybe the wages are increasing while capital, the price of capital is the same, it is constant. And now capital is cheaper as compared to labor, because we have labor intensive and capital intensive. Now the firm, instead of employing labor intensive mechanisms, it employs capital intensive mechanisms, meaning that some people now will have to go away to let the firm employ capital intensive mechanisms. Native, I can see your question. I understand the graph, but I'm talking if it is competition between the firms and you are fearing to lose your skilled workers to other competitors. This thing we're going to talk it under employment. It doesn't apply at this case. But you are talking about you don't want to lose your skilled workers. That's where we talk about people invest in education. People are investing in education, and that's what we call a human capital. So we are going to talk about this. What we are talking about here, we are going to talk about it under employment. This is about skill, whereby the more you invest in education, the more you earn more. And the less you invest in, we are going to talk about it. So for this case, let us talk about the shift of the demand curve. The shift of the demand curve. And here, when you talk about the shift of the labor demand curve, I'm going to chase you out of my class. Your microphone is making a lot of noise. The shift of the labor demand curve. So we talk about it is being brought about. It's brought about by the demand for product. Demand for products. It is going to be brought about by change all the price of substitutes. And also technology levels. So I'm going to take my time to explain every of that, but let me find okay. Hope you can see from your side. You can see my screen, if you can see. Can you see my screen? You can see yes, if you can see my screen. I'm not getting responses here. What's not happening? Okay, thank you. So here we are talking about what can cause the shift of the demand curve. When the demand curve shifts to the right, it means that demand increases. And when it shifts to the left, it means that the demand declines. So this is what normally happens. The first case we are talking about, it being brought about by the demand for the products. So the first thing we talk about, when the demand for the products increases, the farms, because we talked about demand being induced, the farms will be anticipated to produce more. You realize Lydia, just refresh your gadget because I can't tell where the problem comes in from. I can't tell where the problem comes in from. Mina, you are saying it's not clear. You can't see it too. Oh my. But it is just an illustration. It's just an illustration. I was trying to show you the movement, the shift to the right and the shift to the left. Okay, so when the farms, the first thing we are talking about here, it is the demand for products. Demand for products. And here we are saying, if the demand increases, the farms will be induced to produce more. And when the farms are induced to produce more, they will have to employ more workers. That is the first case. When the farms realize that the demand for their products is increasing, they will be induced to produce more. Therefore, they will have to employ more workers. And in the case they realize that demand for products has declined, they will produce less. Therefore, lay off workers. So when they are going to employ more workers, it means that the demand curve will shift to the right. And when they have to employ few workers, the demand curve will shift to the left. That is for the demand for products. Then we talk about the price of substitutes. The price of substitutes. Here, the substitute we are talking about is the price of capital. Also, we can say when the price of capital, when the price of capital increases, or let us use the word rises, the farms will employ more workers. The farms will employ more workers. When the price of capital increases, the farms will employ more workers, and that's what we refer to as the substitution effect. The substitution effect. And also, when the price of capital declines, firms will employ more capital and lay off workers, meaning fewer workers will be needed. So we are talking about the price of capital. Once the price of capital increases, firms will be forced to employ a cheaper alternative that will be labor, so the demand curve will shift to the right. And when they realize that the price of capital has gone down as compared to that of labor, the firms will employ more capital intensive mechanisms. Therefore, they will have to lay off some of the workers. That causes the shift of the demand curve to the left. So that is the two we have talked about. Then about technology. So we can say when the firms are effective, we can use also efficient. They will be productive. They will be productive in the market. Therefore, they will demand labor. So when the firms, their technology start efficient, they will be so productive in the market, so therefore they will demand more labor. And in the case they are not efficient, they will not be productive in the market. Therefore, their labor demand will decline. So if they demand for more labor, the demand curve will shift to the right side. And when they are less productive, the demand curve will shift to the left. So probably that's what we are supposed to understand in what we refer to as labor demand. Anybody with a question? Anybody with a question? Coach, one question. Days spent, I've not seen you participate in our class. Amina, any question? Something for clarification before I tell you what we are supposed to do next for the remaining 1 hour, 38 minutes. Evelyn Otieno, any question? Emmanuel? Hassan, any question? Anybody with a point to add mwenye alisoma mbele atuadie? Mapruka, Rhinos, Eric, about what? What should I come up again about? We have talked about too many things. I want you to be specific. Mina, any question? Mugo, any question? Najib, any question? Purity, any question? Rasid, any question? Eric, where? Be specific. Where do you want me to come up again? Eric? Eric, I want to know where you need some clarification. I want to know where you want a clarification so that I can do that before. Okay, you're asking how the shift comes in between. When we talk about the labor demand curve, on the y-axis we have wages, and on the x-axis we will be having number of laborers. So this is what happens. The wages will remain constant. The wages will not do anything in case the demand for the product increase, in case the technology level is that efficient, or in case the price of substitutes does anything. So what normally happens, the price or the wage will remain constant. So if the wages remain constant and the firm has to employ more people or has to do away with some people, what does that mean? It means that it's not a movement now. More people will be employed. I was working with 5 people, paying them 50 bob each. I want 10 people, but I will be paying them the same 50 bob. So the demand curve will not remain at that position. It will shift, but at the same wage price. So it will be shifting towards the people, but the wage will remain. So about the shift, that's what brings about the shift. But here we are talking about things now that bring the shift of that demand. We have talked about the demand for the product. Once the product realize that you realize that you are so good, you are performing well in the market, you would be forced to produce more so that you can take advantage of the profit. Remember that the firms are profit maximizing entities. So when you realize that your products are so much demanded, you will be, even you, if you are a producer, you will produce more because you want to maximize that opportunity. You want to take advantage of that windfall. So you will produce more. And how are you going to produce more? You are going to employ more workers. However, you are going to pay them the same price, or you are going to pay them the same wage. You are not going to bring some people and give them more money. So if you bring those people on board, the number of employees will increase, but the price will remain the same. So it will cause a shift to the right. So from our case here, we have a shift to the right, meaning that the workers will increase. And if you realize that the demand for your product is going down, you don't produce more, you produce less, meaning that some workers will not be important at that time, at that point in time. So you have to lay them off, meaning that the demand curve will shift to the left. Are you together, Ochuang? When we talk about capital is a substitute. And when you have a substitute, you have an advantage. Because when the price for that substitute goes up, yeah, now we are not talking about the wages. We are talking about the substitute, the price of the substitute. So wages will remain at the same position, assuming that now the price of substitute was at the same point as the price of the wages. So meaning that if it goes up, it will be so expensive to produce. So instead of employing more of that capital, you do away with the capital, you employ more laborers, causing the shift. And if you realize that the price of that substitute has gone down below the wages, you are going to employ more of that capital and less of the laborers. And for technology, I think that is self-explanatory. So what I want you guys to do, so no. Najib, you are talking about the introduction of new technology. So the business change the price of the product. I want us to assume what I want us to assume in this market. I want to assume an ideal, perfect, competitive market. That is the only way we can be able to explain this. If you talk about what happens in the real market scenario, whereby if a new product comes in or a new technology comes in, we expect the price to go up, you may not be able to understand what we are talking about at this point. Let us understand the ideal, perfect, competitive market. So what we are doing is don't try to bring out real life. Just think about an ideal whereby we don't have authority over the wage. So that wherever we are told the wages have to shift them, wherever we are told this is the price, we take it. Sasa Rasid, Mohammed Najib, hope we are together at that point. So this is what I want you guys to do. I want to post some 2, 3, 4, 5 questions on this topic. And this is what I want you to do. I'm going to call it, I'm creating an activity under the topic labor demand. I'm going to create an activity called labor demand forum. I'm going to create another activity called labor demand forum. And when I create that activity, labor demand forum, I want you guys to click on the activity. Once you click on the activity, don't create a topic. Just there will be a topic under it called demand. There will be a topic under that. After you have clicked labor demand, it will pop up another window whereby you will see create a topic, or you will see a topic that already exists, that is demand. Click on that topic demand. The questions will display. Once you see the questions, just if you are able to answer maybe question 1, just click reply, then answer the question 1, then post. Don't answer all the questions. Just answer one question. After you are done with that one question, you can go to question 2 in another reply. So I want us to take this time to at least know whereby we have the issues so that we can try to solve them. So I am calling upon you guys to click or to log out from this platform so that we can proceed with another activity whereby I want every individual who was on board to come, because I downloaded the list of people who are on board. We had 20 people. Now I can see there are 16. So don't go offline. If you have any challenge, you can come back to this platform, because I will be on board, so that I can guide you on the way to go